Your brain has not changed in 50,000 years, but your world has changed in the last 50. You know that feeling when you send a message and the other person reads it but doesn't reply? That strange, crawling discomfort that moves through your chest and into your stomach. You go back and read what you sent. Was it too much? Did you sound weird? Did you say something wrong? And then, even though you know, rationally, logically, with full adult certainty that it is probably nothing, your brain just will not stop. It keeps generating scenarios. It keeps replaying the conversation. It keeps asking the same question over and over, like a broken record jammed on the worst part of the song. Or maybe yours looks different. Maybe it's lying awake at 2 a.m. rehearsing a conversation that hasn't happened yet. Maybe it's that feeling before a meeting where everyone is friendly and nothing bad has ever happened to you there, but your heart still races and your thoughts still spiral. Maybe it's the way you can replay a single embarrassing moment from 6 years ago with perfect, exquisite clarity, as if your brain keeps it in HD storage while your happiest memories slowly go to gray. You have probably told yourself at some point that this means something is wrong with you, that you think too much, that you are too sensitive, that other people don't do this, that if you were just stronger or calmer or more disciplined, the noise would stop. You are wrong. And the truth about why is one of the most extraordinary things I have ever encountered in science. But here is what nobody tells you, and this is the part that should fundamentally change how you see yourself. Your anxiety is not a malfunction. It is a masterpiece. It is quite literally one of the most sophisticated survival systems ever produced by 4 billion years of biological evolution. And the reason it is making your life miserable is not because it is broken. It is because it is working perfectly for a world that no longer exists. Let that sit for a second. The system is not malfunctioning. The system is doing exactly what it was designed to do. The problem is that the system was designed for a savanna, and you are living in a city. The problem is that the software is optimized for hunting and tribal survival, and you are using it to navigate performance reviews and Instagram notifications. This distinction between a broken mind and a mismatched mind is not just semantic. It changes everything about how you relate to your own anxiety, because you cannot fix a broken thing the same way you adapt a mismatched one. And the science of why this mismatch exists is far stranger and far more human than anyone has told you. In the late 1960s, a psychiatrist named Beck was working with patients who suffered from severe depression and anxiety. He expected to find, as Freudian theory predicted, that they were suppressing unconscious aggression or repressed sexual conflict. What he found instead surprised him so completely that it redirected the entire field of psychology. His patients were not disturbed because of hidden, buried impulses. They were disturbed because of their thoughts, specifically because their thoughts were profoundly, systematically, and automatically negative. They were not choosing to think this way. The negative interpretations were arriving automatically, like reflexes. Beck called them automatic thoughts, and the pattern he identified, cognitive distortions, the tendency to assume the worst, to catastrophize, to mind-read danger into neutral situations, became the foundation of cognitive behavioral therapy, which would go on to be the most evidence-supported psychological intervention in history. But Beck's discovery, as profound as it was, left a question unanswered. Why? Why would the brain default to negative interpretation? Why is catastrophic thinking the automatic mode, not calm rationality? Why does your mind, left to its own devices, not drift toward optimism the way a boat drifts toward shore, but instead spin toward danger, threat, and worst-case scenarios? The answer came not from psychology, but from evolutionary biology. And it is devastating in the most illuminating way. Consider two early humans. Let's call them Amara and Buren. Both are foraging near the edge of the forest. Both hear a sound in the grass. Amara's brain says, probably the wind. She keeps walking. Buren's brain says, predator. She freezes. Her heart rate doubles. Her digestion stops. Her muscles flood with glucose. Her attention narrows to a single point. 50% of the time, it is the wind. Amara was right. Nothing happens. Buren wasted energy on a false alarm. But the other 50%? Buren survives. Amara does not. Over 10,000 generations, The anxious brain was selected for with extraordinary ruthlessness, not because anxiety felt good, not because it was accurate, but because the cost of a false positive, feeling afraid when there was no danger, was nothing. The cost of a false negative, feeling calm when there was real danger, was death. Evolution does not optimize for happiness. Evolution optimizes for survival. And survival, for most of human history, meant one thing above everything else. Do not be wrong about threats. This principle has a name. Psychologists call it the negativity bias, and it is not a quirk or a personality trait. It is a feature of the human brain that is as universal and as deeply wired as hunger or the need to sleep. Research by psychologist Roy Baumeister at Florida State University found that bad events, bad emotions, and bad information are processed more deeply, recalled more vividly, and have a disproportionately larger effect on our behavior than equivalent positive experiences. Bad is stronger than good. This is not a flaw in your character. It is the architecture of your species.
And it gets more specific than that.
The structure in your brain responsible for detecting threat, the amygdala, a small almond-shaped cluster of neurons sitting deep in the center of your temporal lobe, does not distinguish between a physical predator and a social one. This is the part that most people don't understand, and it is the key to everything. When neuroscientist Naomi Eisenberger at UCLA designed an experiment in 2003 using a simple virtual ball-tossing game called Cyberball, she made one of the most replicated and important discoveries in social neuroscience. Participants played a game where they would pass a virtual ball back and forth with two other players. Midway through, the other players simply stopped passing to them. They were excluded, left out. The participants were lying inside an fMRI scanner when this happened, and Eisenberger and her team watched what lit up in their brains in real time. The anterior cingulate cortex, the insula, the very same neural regions that activate when you experience physical pain. Social exclusion is not like pain. It is pain. The brain processes rejection, humiliation, and social disconnection using the same circuitry it uses to process a broken bone or a burn. This is not metaphor. This is neurobiology. And why would the brain do this? Because for most of human history, social exclusion was a death sentence. You did not survive alone on the savannah. You needed your tribe for food, for protection, for shelter, for reproduction. Being cast out of your group was, functionally, not very different from being left alone in the wilderness with a predator. Your brain learned to treat both with the same level of alarm, which means that when you lie awake running simulations of how that conversation might have gone wrong, you are not being weak. You are running a threat detection protocol that kept your ancestors alive. When you feel a spike of anxiety before speaking in a group, you are not failing to manage your emotions. You are experiencing the activation of a system that once meant the difference between belonging and exile, between safety and death. The mismatch is this. The threat has changed. The response has not. A disapproving look from a colleague does not mean you will be exiled from the tribe. An awkward message does not mean you will lose your food source. A mistake in a meeting does not mean predators will find you before you find shelter. But your amygdala, this ancient, furious alarm system, does not know that. It was built in a world where every social signal mattered with life and death gravity, and it has not received the update that you are now living in a world where most social mistakes are recoverable, most silences are meaningless, and most perceived rejections are projections. Your brain is a 50,000-year-old instrument running in a world that is 50 years new. The lag is not your fault. The lag is evolution's legacy. Think of it this way. Imagine you moved into a new apartment. The apartment comes with an extremely sophisticated, extremely expensive, extremely sensitive smoke detector. And this smoke detector was built in the 1940s, during a time when apartments burned down all the time, when wiring was bad, when fires were frequent, when the alarm going off was almost always a real emergency that required immediate evacuation. You make toast. The alarm screams. You open a window. The alarm screams. You light a candle. The alarm screams. And every time it screams, your heart rate jumps and your body floods with adrenaline, and your mind immediately generates the thought. Fire. Danger.
Run.
Is the alarm broken?
No.
It is doing exactly what it was designed to do, with exactly the sensitivity it was designed to have. It is detecting smoke molecules in the air with extraordinary precision. The problem is not the alarm. The problem is that it was calibrated for a world where smoke always meant catastrophic fire, and you are now living in a world where smoke mostly means toast. Your anxiety is that alarm. Your nervous system is that alarm. The amygdala that fires when your boss doesn't smile at you. The racing thoughts that arrive when you read a terse email. The full-body dread that wakes you at 3 a.m. before a presentation. These are smoke detectors that were calibrated for a world of constant, existential fire, scanning for embers in a room where the only smoke is from your breakfast. This is not a comforting metaphor designed to make you feel better. It is the literal, biological mechanism. And recognizing it as a mechanism, not as a personality flaw, not as a character deficiency, not as evidence that you are somehow less than, changes the entire conversation you have with yourself when the alarm goes off. So what does this actually mean for you living with this brain in this world right now? It means, first, that the self-criticism you layer on top of anxiety is not neutral. When you feel anxious and then immediately think, why am I like this? What is wrong with me? I need to just calm down. You're doing something neurologically specific. You are activating the threat detection system in response to the threat detection system. The amygdala does not distinguish between an external threat and an internal one. Telling yourself you are broken for being anxious is processed by the brain as another danger signal, which produces more anxiety, which produces more self-criticism, which produces more anxiety. This is the loop that psychologist Paul Gilbert at the University of Derby has spent decades documenting and treating, what he calls the self-critical loop, the mechanism by which shame about anxiety amplifies the very thing you are ashamed of. It means, second, that the goal of eliminating anxiety is not only unrealistic but arguably not even desirable. Some level of the alarm system's function is precisely what helps you perform under pressure. Notice genuine threats, prepare for things that matter, and stay alert to social dynamics that are relevant to your well-being. A person with no anxiety would not survive long, not because the world is dangerous, but because some of the signals the alarm sends are real and important. The goal is not silence. The goal is calibration. It means, third, that what you are looking for when you ruminate, when your mind will not stop turning a problem over and over, is resolution. The amygdala will not relax until it believes the threat has been assessed and addressed. This is why distraction, by itself, rarely works. You can push the thought aside, but it will return because the threat detection system has not received confirmation that the threat has been evaluated. The ancient answer to this was action. Fight, flee, or resolve. When modern threats don't allow those options, you cannot fight your way out of an awkward email or flee a difficult conversation. The unresolved threat just keeps cycling. The system keeps asking, have you dealt with this? Have you dealt with this? Have you dealt with this? It means, finally, that the most effective interventions for anxiety are not the ones that try to silence the alarm by force. They are the ones that communicate with it, update it, recalibrate it. This is why therapy modalities like cognitive behavioral therapy and acceptance and commitment therapy work, not by suppressing anxiety, but by helping the prefrontal cortex, the rational, planning, context-aware part of the brain, engage with the amygdala signals and provide updated information. You are not fighting your brain. You are, slowly and deliberately, updating the firmware.